Peace and blessings. What's going on, everybody? This is HB Harold Branch, the third, here with another nightly decompression. And I am excited because it is a continuation of yesterday's conversation. But for those of you who are chiming in for the first time, nightly decompression is merely myself and Dr. Angela Kenzslowe, an amazing psychologist, spending about 15 minutes or so and just going over some self-care things, some things to help take the stress off of your day, some tactics, some strategies, some things to consider, things to think about, so that you don't have to hold on to so much of the pressure, so much of the stress, so much of the weight that falls on us on a daily basis, especially in times such as this. We're talking about COVID everywhere. The political scene is stressful in and of itself. Watching the news will send you into a panic attack if you're not careful, right? And obviously the movements pushing towards equality that is spearheaded by the Black Lives Matter movement and so many other movements that's coming up in that energy, using this moment in order to right some very, very, very old wrongs. So we are in a good place. We're in a wonderful place. However, this place demands a lot of energy. It's kind of like a harvest time. And a lot of people, when they think of harvest, and I know that reference is used in motivation and speeches in the church, and a lot of different places. But when you think of harvest time is actually the time where you work the most. You're working the hardest in order to pick all of the vegetables and the fruit or whatever it is, so that you can get it out of the field before it rots. So a lot of people think harvest, you just sit back and accept. No, harvest is some of the heaviest lifting, some of the hardest work you're going to end up doing if you want to collect the fruits of your efforts, the bounty, if you will. And so that's where we at right now from a social perspective. So it's a lot of work out there. It's a lot of things on our minds, on our hearts, a lot of conversations, intense conversations, some of those educating, some of those venting, and I'm sure a lot of different other categories. But the fact of the matter is we got to make sure that we're maintaining a place of peace and doing that through self-care, so that we can be engaged in the long run and we don't burn out. That's our whole purpose here, is to help individuals not burn out. And we get to continue a phenomenal conversation that we had yesterday. We started yesterday concerning communicating with our kids, which is absolutely exciting. So if you're on, please go ahead and just say hello. I won't be able to comment as we're about to get into the actual viewing. However, it's always good to see who's watching, who is plugging in with us, who enjoys seeing this on a nightly basis, because we are in our 5th week, which is exciting. With that being said, I want to introduce and bring on my amazing co-host, who is so wonderful in order to accept the invitation to participate in this and to make a nightly commitment. That's something heavy to ask somebody, make a nightly commitment. And so I'm very glad that she was able to do that. She is a psychologist, a doctor in that field. She is licensed in the state of Arizona, works with our military, and she is a veteran herself, but an amazing person with a very diverse background, from film to television to, just so many different things. Just a beautiful individual, and amazing mom and GMA, actually. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce to you our very own beautiful spirit, Dr. Angela Kenzslowe.
Hey, HB. Hey. I was sitting back here like, and then you said GMA. I was like, it gave me like life. Yes.
Right on. And hey, everybody, thank you all for saying hello. We do appreciate that. It's always good to see who's there. Yes. Good to see y'all. It really is. And so, Angela, we had a great conversation yesterday discussing youth, kids, and communication. And we talked a little bit about how to give them grace and how to consider what they may be going through, which led us down a path. And you see, I got one of my Father's Day shirts on. I got so many Father's Day shirts.
Oh, right? That's what it says, Dad. Okay.
Yeah. It says Dad, but if you look closely, it's written in Quattroanella. It's just a bunch of Quattroanella
in the word. So cool. cool. I have to look down to see. That is so. I didn't.
That's kind of sweet, right? That's kind of sweet. I gotta
Yeah.
give props to my ex-wife, Reiko, who always sets out Father's Day in an amazing way and is the biggest, just the number one encourager of good fatherhood in this household. So without that encouragement, it definitely wouldn't even be this smooth and this attractive. So I'm grateful to her. So you do not have to be with the mother or father of your children to be grateful and show them honor and show them respect, because that's a great way to love all of your child as well. So, but with that, what I want to do is, I know we ended the conversation yesterday and you mentioned some of the science behind it. I know I went from the passionate place as a dad, and you hit some of the, you mentioned some of the science behind that. And so I want to just kind of really hear what you got to share as far as that, because I would like to know how that works. How does the brain work in these, when it comes to grace and trauma and what people are working through? And I know that's your specialty, is dealing with trauma. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that over to you and take some mental notes myself.
All right. So, and we're just going to do high level overview. I'm going to try not to get into very specific particulars, but as we know, sometimes that can be challenging for me.
And there's some nerds on particulars.
So, yeah, the particulars. So the brain. So our brain is not what science and what research, what the literature, the evidence-based literature tells us is that our brain is not fully developed until about the age of 25. So here we are, especially in the US and other Western countries, we tell everybody, oh, you're 18, you're an adult, you can make your decisions for yourself. And that is probably one of the worst things we could have ever done, is because adolescence actually goes through until 25. It's what in science world we call late adolescence. So while legally you're an adult, but when it comes to decision making and impulse control and just full development of that brain, you're not. We're not. And do you know who really knew that and would charge us accordingly?
Who's that?
Car insurance, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Ever since we get that license, we're like, when I turn 25, my insurance rate's going to drop. Why? Because they know when you turn 25, around that age, your decision making is going to be better. Your impulse control is going to be better, right? So we've been indoctrinated into this. We just didn't know why. Like, was 25 arbitrary? No, it was backed by science. Wow. So let's take that back to the little ones, and then we'll kind of go up through age as to how we can incorporate this with how we communicate with our little people in our lives. So I used my grandson, I don't know if it was last night or when we were talking about this a little bit last week, with temperament. And, you know, he's 4, and there's a lot of 4-year-olds out there when they were 3, when they were 2. At 2, language isn't as fully developed as 4, right? So at 2, we often hear, oh, it's the terrible twos. And I have tried to help people reframe that forever. It's the terrific twos, right? Okay. They're starting to tell you no, right? And we're like, how dare you tell me no? Right. You little 2-year-old person, you person who's been breathing for 2 whole years. Right. It's so long. You have all this life. They don't. What they're doing is they're learning that they're independent of you. And they finally have come at 2. They finally are coming to realize, oh, I have my own mind. I have my own will. Wow. I can say no. I can say, I don't like that by saying no. Or I can throw a temper tantrum because the word no isn't sufficient enough and I don't have the words to say everything it is that I'm wanting to say. So what do we do to help reduce those temper tantrums from 2 to 3 to 4 to 13 to 16 is we practice giving them words, right? So at 2 years old, start how you expand vocabulary as well. Like my 4-year-old grandson, his vocabulary is now vast. His parents, I know I keep saying this is what I have done. It's his parents. His parents my son and Jamie, they are phenomenal parents. And I just wish I was as great as them way back then. So
you ain't give them because you made the parent that is the great parent. So just throwing that out there, Jamal.
Yeah, but it's, you know, trial and error. Do what I did well, do that better, and don't do what I did poorly. Like that's kind of the rule. Do what I did well, do it better, and don't do what I did poorly.
Yes, ma'am.
So, all right. So they're saying no. I'll give an example. I know I'm kind of all over the place. My grandson was here. My son was dropping him off, and he was supposed to eat, and he had a milkshake. And so he wasn't eating. And so finally, my son put the milkshake in the refrigerator. We know why he put the milkshake in the refrigerator, because the milkshake's going to melt.
Right.
My grandson only can think of, wow, he took the milkshake away from me. Right. So now his temper's going, he's getting upset. My son had to leave, and now I'm left with this temper. So we give words. I understand that you are disappointed that you're not able to have your milkshake right now. Now I'm going to do something, sidebar, that a lot of parents, especially parents who come from ethnic backgrounds, will probably not agree with from a cultural standpoint, but I promise you it's going to help with the temperament of your child and the growth of their vocabulary and the ability to manage their emotions. We're going to explain. Because we want to increase their critical thinking, right? So then later.
Oh yeah, I believe in explaining.
The reason why your dad put the milkshake in the refrigerator is because if we leave it out, it's going to melt. And he doesn't want it to melt. So that's why it's there. So you can be disappointed that you can't have it now until you finish your lunch. Once you're done with your lunch, then we will get the milkshake out and it will not be melted.
Absolutely.
So what happens? He has some words. He's able to say, I'm disappointed because I can't have my milkshake, instead of,
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did. It's like magic. It is. I just wish I knew this as I was parenting. It is like magic. Give him the words. I know you're upset. I know you're disappointed. I know you're sad. Right? All right. So that's the brain. At about 2 to 4, you're giving words. 2 years old, they're becoming independent. As time goes on, you continue to give words, because even though they may know the word at 6 of disappointed, they may not be thinking, oh, I have the words. So now I'm going to remind you. So then you're able to then control that attitude or the impulse. 6:09. Okay. I'm all over the place because I feel like I want to say so much and we have so little time.
True, but you're doing great.
Yeah. So the other thing is, at that age, so we're going to still talk 6 and on up, is impulse control, because the last part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. It's the front part of the brain where our executive functioning, think executive of a company. It's where all the decisions are made. So our decision making, our executive functioning, and our impulse control. Okay. So that 4-year-old who doesn't have the words, because you haven't given them the words and you haven't reminded them of the words, they stomp their foot. Right. I've told you not to stomp your foot. And so as a parent, we start to, right? But they don't have the impulse control that you adult over 25 have. They don't have the impulse control that you 22-year-old have, right? They're 4. Their brain, I'm upset, I do this because I don't have the words. So again, what do? We remind them of their words, and then we tell them you can be upset, you can be disappointed, you can be sad, you can be angry, whatever it is, the emotion that you're trying to help them identify, but you're not going to have poor behavior. Right. And so you give them an opportunity to limit the impulse, to limit the stomp.
I can respect that. Yeah. Giving them an opportunity.
Giving them an opportunity. And that goes back to what you were saying with grace on yesterday, right? Yeah. It's just another word for grace. Give them grace, because these little people, they're learning. And every time you give them a word, you're disappointed, you're sad, you're angry. You're helping these little neurons in their brain meet one another, and the brain is making all these other connections, and they're becoming more and more smart by the minute because you are giving them grace, opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow, and opportunity to be developmentally appropriate, right? Without these standards that most adults don't even follow through with, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll stick there for tonight because I don't want to go into the older ages just yet. So what was that, like 2 to 6-ish of really giving words, giving opportunities, helping them understand you're allowed to have your emotions, but we're not going to have poor behavior, and then giving that opportunity to not have the poor behavior to be able to manage that impulse.
Without a doubt. No, I appreciate what you shared because I'm a firm believer that home is where training is for the world.
Oh, yeah.
So often as parents, in our desire to get convenient discipline, because often we get upset when we're inconvenienced. Sometimes they didn't really do anything wrong, and what they did was age appropriate, but it's inconveniencing us. So now we're annoyed, we're upset, and we do that. And we come down hard. And sometimes I believe parents could break kids' spirits, and I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And they break them.
And parents often, there's a thing that we typically say, well, this kid didn't come with a book. Go buy a book. Read about what's happening at each age of development, so you as the parent know what to expect and what you can do to help them through that age, right? As parents, again, this is different than what most people think. We're here to guide and to mold. They are not little us's, right? Your daughter is not a little H. Quattro is not a little H. That is Ella, and that is Quattro. And you have the opportunity and the privilege to witness them grow and become independent. But a lot of folks, we don't. I know when I was raising my son, that wasn't the philosophy, right? Yeah. It was, you do what I say.
It was ownership.
You are going to live the life that I want you to live. And if I'm okay with you exploring something because that interest I think is okay for you to explore, then you will do that. If it's not something that I think is, come on, like these are people and they're individuals. They're just younger than you.
I think that it's important to identify what that could do in the long run.
Yeah.
You know, you put them in a position where they don't know how to stand up for themselves, advocate for themselves with adults.
Yep.
So it puts them in a position to be abused later, to be treated horribly later, to not stand up for themselves, to not be assertive later. We wonder why they won't speak up, you know, in their 20s. You told them to shut up all in their teens. So these things have long-lasting effects.
Yes.
Somebody commented and said, so when is it okay to lay hands?
Never.
This is what I got to say as far as that's concerned. If you're hitting your kids all the time, I'm going to argue that there's some lazy disciplining going on. The entire environment, when it's done properly, you don't get that far. You don't get there. I question someone who is constantly laying hands on somebody they're stronger than. Yeah. It turns from disciplining to being a bully to taking your day out. And so
let me say this so I don't appear like a hypocrite. I spanked. If I knew better, I would have done better. Keep in mind, my son is almost 30.
Right.
So if I knew better back then, I would have never spanked my son, right? I would have worked on me as a parent because it was easier. Single mom, oh, you did something wrong, boom, boom, boom. Because if he's put on punishment, guess who else is on punishment?
Yeah, you're on punishment for sure.
I'm on punishment.
I will say this. I'm not an anti-spank. I'm not a total, and I'm still working that out, but I got to admit, I haven't had to. I've had to give one. You know what I mean? In a long journey, and in like 15 years, because of giving the philosophies behind why I need what I need done. I'm willing to sit down. I want them to understand, or else they're doing something for no other reason than I told them to, and that doesn't help them when they get outside of my house.
But do you want your children to And we're over time.
We are.
But
so,
what I would like to leave people to with how we kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole after talking about the brain is I would like to leave people with really thinking about, do you want your child to fear you or respect you?
Right on. And we'll leave it at that. Obviously, this is not to have the to spank or not spank debate. That's not our purpose. The purpose of this conversation is to just talk about giving some grace and removing some of the stress and the weight in our household. You know what I'm saying? In our household. Certain households, you're going to do what you're going to do. Like we don't even have that kind of time. You know what I mean? To really dive into some of these things. So, do what you do. But I do encourage everyone, anything worth doing is worth learning more about. Anything worth doing, lifespan development, anything
this is a good book.
Is worth learning about. So if we care about parenting for real, when's the last time we took a workshop, a seminar? When the last time we read a book on it? When the last time we checked? I believe we should read and study everything from food to sex to working out to parenting. Study it if it's important.
Yep.
If it's important, study it. Some people have studied it. You know what I'm saying?
So the reason why I was holding up that book, HB, is if you get an older edition, it should be really inexpensive on Amazon. But it's just a really good book that will take you through the full lifespan development, but just what we were talking about, those earlier years as a parent.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right. I see there's probably going to be some debate here. And you're welcome to message me and we can debate further, but we got to go. We appreciate you. We adore you. We are all warriors, and warriors have to know how to fight, but warriors also have to know how to heal. I hope tonight was a good session for you all. Dr. Kenzslowe, I appreciate you. And be sure to follow Dr. Kenzslowe. Here is all her information. I think there it is. All her information. Follow her on IG. Follow her on Facebook as well. I'll make sure to keep this available for you. And she'll even go on and put this on the comments so that you can go ahead and follow her so we could help do some bigger things later on. Peace and blessings.
Night.